Shut up and sit down.
Hello and welcome to the Nerds at Large Spoilercast for Game of Thrones Season 8, Episode 6, aka the final episode of Game of Thrones for all time. I am one of your hosts, Darby Holland.
I am Jeff Mayo.
And we are joined once again by two wonderful guests. Go ahead and introduce yourself, both of you.
Hola, yo soy Chad Michaelinis from Respawn Aimfire, the kick-ass irreverent gaming podcast.
And I am Holden DePardo, also from Respawn Aimfire.
Chad's turned into a monster on our screen.
Yeah, Chad is kind of turning monsterish on our screen. Your whole beard is just like turning... Okay, there you go. Hey, Chad, welcome back. Well, guys, honestly, I would rather just talk to you guys for an hour instead of talking about this episode, to be honest. But
We gotta get it to you, Darby.
I guess we're contractually obligated to talk about this. This was the final episode of Game of Thrones of all time. At least of the main series. There's going to be some spin-offs that we know is going to happen, but this was the last of the series that we've been watching for about a decade now. Let's go around.
There's so much pain in how you said decade.
Let's go around. I'll start. Why not?
You froze.
To be fair, I'm like literally 10 minutes away from watching the episode, and I have been drinking all day. I will preface both of those, but
Went for a good time.
I hated it. I feel like, and now it makes me feel like I've been tame all season. I hated it. I honestly don't think I can come up with very many positive things to say, and I'm probably going to be a bummer to be on this podcast with. And I'm not even joking. About 45 minutes in, I started praying to gods that I don't even know about that the episode could stop and I can move on with my life. That's about where I'm at with this finale. How about someone else go?
Here's my thoughts on it. You know when your grandpa gets dementia, and in the later stages of his life, he becomes an extreme racist, and he's rude, and he's mean, and he's literally the worst version of himself that he's ever been in his life. And then one day, you get brave enough to just hold a pillow over his face and end it. And then once he's finally at peace, you can finally look back on it and be like, remember all the good times I had with Grandpa? I don't have to worry about that last season with Grandpa when he was awful and the worst thing I've ever seen. I can just look back and appreciate everything else he gave me throughout my life.
While you're in jail.
No.
That's a better fate. That's a better fate than living with Grandpa for another season.
This was so bad, and I'm glad that Grandpa's dead. So I can finally be like, Game of Thrones was mostly great.
I'm surprised to hear all this. I thought it couldn't have ended any better. It's up there with the Breaking Bad ending where it's flawless.
Get
It
out.
wouldn't have changed anything at all.
Holden's sense of humor equals lying. He doesn't know what comedy is. He just lies.
Well, see, Chad, the thing is, this was so bad that I can't even buy it. Like, I know that he's bullshitting. Like, there's no way he's not bullshitting.
I couldn't say that unless it was just that bad. I'm really at a loss for words in a lot of ways. I think my whole kind of criticism this whole season has been that would have been a great moment had the setup been better. And I felt a lot of that for like even Jon stabbing Dany. I'm like, that could have been a really great moment had the setup been better. But Bran, man, that is just so
was laughing.
I laughed.
I was
yes.
cackling.
All right.
Yes.
I laughed
I
two
turned to
times
Jeff
during
and
that
I was
scene.
like, what the fuck is going on?
I was looking at
What
Darby
the
and he was
actual
trying to
fuck is
hold it
going
all.
on?
I burst out in laughter at 2 points during the episode. They're both in that scene. One is when Sam gets up and says, "Why not democracy?" Because we were calling that out last week, saying like, "What if it ended with democracy?" And I'm like, "Oh my god, are they going to do it? Is it that bad?" And then no, they don't do that. They give it to Bran, who's done nothing all season long.
And everyone
He's been
in that
brain dead and
circle of
comatose.
people, none of those circle of people even know who the fuck
Yeah.
he is.
I know.
This is not even a little bit earned.
If you said, "Hey, here's the future king of Westeros. His name is Bran," and he says, "I'm actually the three-eyed raven."
If he would have
I'd be
said
like,
that,
he's
I
my
would have
leader.
thrown
That's the
something
guy
through
right
my
there.
TV.
What was it? Sorry, what was that, Chad?
If he would have if he would have said, "But I'm not Bran, I'm the three-eyed raven," I would have thrown something through my TV.
But it's like the only time he hasn't said that when someone calls him Bran. For some reason, this time he doesn't have a problem with it.
What
Because it
got
is
me?
destiny.
Because it is
There
his
was-
destiny.
There
why he was
three
there.
jokes. There were 3 jokes. There was the guy who stood up and he's like, I'm the king of blah blah blah, and then Sansa's just like, sit down. And I was like, oh, ha, 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 that's funny. And then
Sit down, no
he
name.
gets up and he's like, hey, what about democracy? And everyone's like, ha ha ha. And then Tyrion says, what about
Literally
Bran?
laughed him down.
And I was like, please God, tell me this is a joke. And then they keep going, and literally in my head, I was picturing that scene from The Office where Michael discovers Toby's still there, and he goes, "No, God, no, no, no!"
I, honest to God, I swore that they were building up to a punchline where it was like, no, Tyrion, no, of course not. And then we were going to move on to the real ending. And then they just kept going.
Oh, it was so
Like no one
trash.
went like, actually, what was that guy's idea about the people deciding? Let's go with that one because all the other ideas have been ridiculous.
So I haven't gave my general impressions yet of this.
Yeah, do you have a wildly different take, Jeff?
So this episode was awful. It makes this season awful. It makes literally the last half of Game of Thrones awful. And honestly, this makes the series as a whole so much worse. And there was too many storylines that led to absolutely nothing that took up a whole lot of time. And this just makes the show a whole lot worse.
John's reveal meant nothing. Nothing. Arya's face thing. Nothing.
Oh my God, yeah.
Honestly, even Bran meant nothing because what about what he's been through led to him being the king of the freaking realm?
Because
Like,
he
what did that have
he
to
knows
do with-
everything and he's emotionless.
But like that's
Why
so
was
weak.
like Yara of the Iron Islands voting for Bran Stark, who she doesn't even know? Like, how is he any better than?
Here's what doesn't make sense to me is
Yeah,
throughout the
go
whole show, people have been talking about like what makes a king, and so much of it has been, well, they've been a commander and they fought in war before, and like Bran's the farthest thing from that. It's like,
He's literally a mannequin.
he
He's
would
a
be
mannequin
great-
in a wheelchair.
under the logic of the show and in the world of Westeros, I feel like they could have made a really great argument to have him be like a hand to the king or an advisor of some kind, but like the king himself, he's not that warlord that people seem to want in this world as their leader. He's just not that. And I don't mean there's a criticism to Bran's character, it's just a fact. Like that's not who he is.
Well, they definitely broke the wheel
So,
with this one.
They definitely
He's not
broke
the
wheel with
warlord
this
that
one.
everyone wants. He's something completely different. And they're going to realize they fucked up in about 3 months, and they're going to do something wildly different, and that's the spin-off series.
I mean, even if you could like sell to me that it's like, yeah, he would be the best ruler because he's basically a god at this point. Again,
But again,
those
is he-
people in that circle don't know him and don't know anything about him. Like,
Yeah.
why are they like? I kind of got like, even though it's stupid, I kind of got Tyrion and maybe Sam and a few other people saying like, yes, I'll support him. But like Davos, Yara, Catelyn's brother, who was the one who stood up and said something about wanting to be king that like no one remembers even who he is. I can't even remember his name right now.
Exactly. No.
Yeah. Why the hell
We
would
haven't seen
he
him
be
since the Red
supporting
Wedding, I don't
him?
think.
Do what?
I don't think we've seen his character since the Red Wedding.
No, he came up one time in season 6 when Jaime went to stop the siege at River Run. There was like one scene since the Red Wedding.
Oh,
that he's
okay.
been in.
I take
Yeah.
back everything I said. This episode was great. Never mind.
10 out of 10.
Best series ever.
I'm legitimately like, I've talked about like sometimes this season, like I felt like some people were being a little too harsh on this season overall. And I definitely like, there was a few times I was like, it feels like fan fiction, but it's fun fan fiction. This was like the ultimate pits of it feeling like fan fiction. Like
Everything
this,
was the worst.
This feels like I went on Reddit and read someone's like really shitty like prediction on Reddit, and it became a reality. Like it was that on a like epic production
But like
scale. I
a
was like,
heavily downvoted one.
yeah, yeah,
And you had to search for this one.
Yeah.
one that people were making fun of like a lot. Yeah.
Like, did you see this one? It's downvoted by 100,000 votes. It's incredible. Everyone hates it.
Wait, guys, I got one positive thing to say.
Oh.
Oh wow.
John Pett the good boy.
He pet the good boy.
Oh my
by
God.
by that point, again, I was in my stage where I was like praying to Allah to let the episode end. I was like desperate, praying to any god I could think of to let it end. Honest to God, we had a clock right below the TV, and I kept staring down at it. This is the first time I've ever done that with Game of Thrones.
I was checking my phone left and right through this thing.
Yeah, I was like, how long has it been? It's been 1 hour and 10 minutes. Okay, we only have 10 more minutes. Thank fucking God, we only have 10 more minutes. I looked down, I was like, okay, we only have 5 more minutes. Thank God.
I was in awe, honestly, the whole time. Like, I couldn't believe how bad it was in certain scenes. I just didn't even look at my phone. I usually look at my phone during episodes this season. But, like, when Drogon burns down the Iron Throne, I'm like, is this happening? This is so dumb. Why does the dragon have a concept of the Iron Throne? Like,
yeah, why does he care?
Why does he care? Like, metaphorically, and like, there's the Iron Throne killed Dany, therefore he sees that and burns the throne down. But like, no, the dragon didn't think that because it's a dragon. It's just, it's just ridiculous.
I'm surprised they didn't try to kill Jon.
Yeah, that's what, like, that would have made way more sense. But it didn't happen, and thank God, because Jon served a great purpose in the rest of the show. That he should have not
Gonna
died
send you
that
back
scene.
up to the wall to defend against nothing because wildlings are people now. See, that also pisses me off. You know what this is exactly like? And this is gonna get weird and controversial, but this is exactly like...
All right.
Okay, the Night's Watch. Think back to the 1960s America. Civil rights, we realize, yes, all people are people. We no longer need the KKK because they're irrelevant and they're awful. So why do we have now a Night's Watch? Because there's nothing to defend against. Jon Snow is doing nothing for the rest of his life. There is no threat up there. The wildlings are people. We got that. We understand that. That's great. There's no White Walkers anywhere. Why do we still need a Night's Watch? It's stupid. What are they going out into the woods to do?
I mean, I'm not saying this would be good necessarily, but it would even been potentially be better, in quotes, that I'm probably gonna be doing that a lot, if they let Jon free and he just decided to live with the wildlings of his own volition.
Yeah, it
like
wasn't
that would be more in character and make more sense.
Where he's like, hey, I'm gonna like peace out to avoid any conflicts with rule. I'm just gonna go. Yeah,
I was convinced that he was gonna turn around and say, "Don't close that gate. That gate is now always open." But they still closed it. They still closed it.
It's so stupid.
I guess maybe I'm wrong, and maybe they in the show, maybe Bran said something about it being completely done, but like I don't know if we're 100%, like we 100% know that the White Walkers will never come back again, because they've been here like 1,000 years before this, and they were here now. They might come again, which was the original point of the Night's Watch, but the Night's Watch basically became a giant racist organization that like hated wildlings. That's what it evolved into.
We're also missing something really big here. Why close the gate? Why have the Night's Watch the giant wall when there's a giant fucking hole in the wall that anyone can walk through at any point? Like,
are you gonna rebuild
doesn't
that?
serve a purpose anymore? Like,
one of of the writers, we forgot about the
we
muscle through the wall.
I would believe that at this point.
And the whole or blah forgot about whatever is now a meme. Have you seen that?
Oh no!
It's one of the behind the episodes thing for a couple weeks back. They said like, I think it was Dany forgot about Euron pretty much dying fleet.
They said that after he surprise attacked them.
Yeah, that just became a meme about people forgetting about things, writers forgetting about things.
Oh, that's
like guys, we're gonna be all over the place, and I'm still like contemplating this, but I am like blown away by how bad this was. Like I expected to be disappointed, but this is like so much more than I ever could have.
Yeah, I am on that being it so bad. I think it goes right back to it being rushed. And these guys were so ready to do Star Wars. I think they were just so ready to do Star Wars. They had to rush it out because there's so many things. Again, even in this episode where it's like, had this been a few more seasons, would have been great. Can you imagine how cool it would have been to have an episode towards the end where Tyrion and Jon Snow are imprisoned because Jon stabbed Daenerys and you don't know what's going to happen? What's less lame is a cut that just goes over 3 weeks of just juicy politics in that show that I would have loved to have seen play out, but they don't do it because they had to rush this ending. It's just, even in this episode, it's just so insanely rushed. There was no time to breathe or do anything.
Like, if you had told me seasons ago, like, yeah, the ending finale of this, Daenerys Targaryen is going to be killed by Jon Snow, and you are going to feel nothing.
Yeah.
And then you're going to go
Nothing.
2 scenes later and we're deciding who's the next person on the Iron Throne is. And you have like felt nothing during this. I would say you're crazy. Like, of course I'm going to feel something. I love these characters. I've like been watching these characters for years. I've been reading books for these characters for years. Like, of course, like, even if they mess things up, like, that's going to mean something. But it meant nothing.
It doesn't help that his face didn't sell it at all because it looked like he was kissing the most disgusting person you've ever seen in his life. Even though he maintains that she is and will always be his queen, and he was so conflicted and he still loves her, but he's got to do this for the good of the country. No, he looked like he was kissing a fucking tree with thorns on it.
He was disgusted with himself.
Judd's character also makes no sense this whole season because every line of dialogue he said is, "I love the queen. She's my queen." Yada yada yada. Every bit of
Fucking
action,
why?
Yeah, why? But every bit of action doesn't line up with that. He went ahead and just told Sansa about Aegon Targaryen, even though he knew what the consequences of that were going to be. I know he said that it's an honorable thing to do, but there's no way he didn't know that Dany was going to be super fucking pissed about it. Then he stabs her. Like, I can't think of anything that he did that was, like, super in support of her, necessarily. Besides just saying outright all the time, she's my queen. But when it comes to big moments, like stabbing her or not, he's just still going to say, I'm your queen, while he stabs her. Like, or you're my queen while he stabs her. It's just, his character really frustrated me. Really frustrated me.
I mean, I can buy the things before, like I said, it's in Jon's character that like Ned did the same thing. It was like what he's doing is stupid, but it's the honorable thing to do. So it makes sense that Ned would do that. But the problem is we had to go from him arguing with Tyrion, like you can see Jon like conflicted about he like thinks he loves this girl, but then he also just saw what she did and, you know, having to wrestle with that. And then literally it's just like hard cut to the scene where he kills her. And it's just, we have absolutely zero time for any of this to breathe whatsoever. And this is the like worst case of it. For like Daenerys Targaryen's arc to end in just kind of a
Little whimper.
just a little like stab.
Oh my god, yeah.
She fades off, dies, dragon
Bleeds.
flies off, and we don't even know what happened after that. And then it's just like Bran fucking Stark becomes king. Like, oh my god.
We know what's going on with Drogon. They're trying to find him or something. He's just flying off somewhere.
And then he's like, well, maybe
You
I'll
just
try.
think-
Well, fucking course you should try. You're the only one who actually knows how to, like, warg into these things.
I can't believe any of this happened. Or do we want to try to go through some of it? Like, I'm trying to think of like things that happened in the beginning. I mean, at the beginning, it had some sort of promise where it was like, okay, we're dealing with the aftermath of this battle, and you saw like, miraculously, Dany has thousands of Unsullied again.
And Dothraki.
I
Don't know where
fucking
those
know.
came from.
And Dothraki.
Yeah, and Dothraki. Like she
You were
literally-
playing his whole army.
She says something about like thousands of Unsullied. It's like, where did those come from? We saw you with like nothing before.
It feels like there are more there than there were in the beginning.
Yeah, it fills up the courtyard King's Landing. But even putting that aside, like I liked how this started, where it was like, yeah, you're seeing like Jon and Tyrion both like, you know, experiencing the aftermath of this destruction. And I did like the moment where Tyrion like rips off his hand thing. He's like, yeah, you let out your brother. He's like, yeah, I free my brother, but you destroy the whole city. And he threw the hand. Like, I like that. Like, I thought, okay, we're heading somewhere there. Like, did you guys like the whole start of this episode too?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's sad when Tyrion found, Jaime and Cersei.
Oh, yeah. I kind of forgot about that.
I think
Yeah.
he found them way too easily.
Yeah. I
He had
guess.
so much ground to cover in the episode. He had to find him really quick. Tyrion's
He-
like, "Shit,
but
there's
But think
only
about
an
this.
hour left in
Tyrion
the
walks
show."
down there. At first, I was like, why is he walking down there? And I was like, okay, I get it. He's going to go check and see if the boat's gone to see if his brother escaped.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, you walk down there and you see just a mountain of bricks, most of which are a third your height. And then your first instinct is not, I wonder if he got away or I wonder if he's under this thing. Your first instinct is, I'm going to lift every single brick under this mountain just in case they happen to be underneath of it. And if they are, they're dead. If not, they're somewhere far off and I'm never going to see them again. Why? Why are you digging through this thing when you know your end goal is to go see Cersei? It's so stupid. And then they were just like right underneath like 2 bricks on their heads.
But they had to make you cry when he found them.
Yeah.
I didn't cry. I didn't cry.
Did you cry, Chad?
No. No.
I guess, Chad, really quick, what'd you think about last episode since you weren't on here?
Last episode was one of my favorite episodes of Game of Thrones.
Yeah. I mean, I agree on its own. Like, if you like separate what led us to it, I agree that last week's episode was like one of the most impressive and one of the most like awesome singular episodes.
Honestly, I'm not even saying this because of the episode. The more I thought about it afterward, the more I disliked last week's episode because the whole Danny thing was just too out of nowhere. Honestly,
Yeah, I dislike
that's the whole build up thing. Again, like I said, the cinematography and all that were beautiful, the shots and everything, but I watched Game of Thrones mainly for the story, and they fail me.
Yep, that's this whole season.
Yeah, I do feel like, just last words on last week, I do feel like Danny, you could see how that might have happened over the seasons, and there are events that kind of led you to her snapping, but they didn't earn that in this episode, and it definitely came way too quickly. And also, the other thing that I thought was really, really stupid, and I also laughed at last week, was when Cersei literally was just staring at the Hound, and then there's just a shot of her running down the stairs right beside him. I was like,
I'm just going to sneak on by you. Just like, just sneak right beside you.
Down the stairs.
Don't mind me. Just go slip on by.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to get your
But let's
opinion.
shit more on this episode.
Yeah, let's shit more on this. All right, back to the shitting. Like, I just wanted some positivity.
Can we talk about Arya and her
Please,
surprising love of travel to lands?
Where'd that come from?
There was in season, I think it was in season 6, whenever she was still in Essos with the Faceless Men, there was this lady that she talked to that was part of like the theater play she was with.
Okay.
And they said something about, she asked her, they said something about like what's west of Westeros, and she's like, I don't know, no one knows. And she's like, I'd like to go there someday. Like, I remember that being a line of dialogue at some point. So it was set up with like one line of dialogue. And honestly, like, this is another thing where the grand scheme of like Arya ending up like, I don't want to deal with house politics, I just want to go explore around. Like, that makes sense to me for Arya's character in the long run. I mean, obviously it was handled weird here, but in the long run, that overall makes sense to me. It's kind of weird. Like, she did that. Who knows what happened?
Is everyone on her list dead now?
Everyone on the show list, I think, is.
Yeah. It was
I believe.
Frey, Cersei, Jaime Lannister, Joffrey, the Hound, the
Cersei. And Cersei was on
Cersei.
it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Yeah, everyone's dead. Yeah.
She's going to be real pissed when she finds out the world's a flat square.
She falls right off the end.
I knew it!
The flat earthers are like, yeah. Well, yeah. If y'all have any like particular things you want to complain about, please interject. If not, we'll like try to go through it. Do you guys remember what it's at? 'Cause I did not take notes this episode. I just kind of had mouth agape, like
One thing I was
complete anger the entire
One thing I was
time.
kind of surprised by, and maybe I just don't know about the politics of the world enough, but I feel like Sansa saying, "Oh, well, the North is just going to be independent now," would have been grounds for a war under any other circumstance. But everyone's kind of like, "Yeah, that's fine. You can just do
I
that."
mean, that was that whole scene. Someone kind of, I mean, other than the whole 2 times that they were jokes because the characters that brought it up were jokes, but when someone important brought something up, they all just nodded like, yeah, they're right. Let's go with that.
Like, you think the Ironborn, whose like entire like civilization is built on war and pillaging, is just like, yeah, that's fine, that's fine,
Yeah.
that's fine. Like,
What was made this kid I don't know who's a cripple a king? And yeah,
he says he's a 3-eyed raven, so it's fine. What the
Yeah.
fuck is a 3-eyed raven?
it sounds important.
we are watching the show and we don't even understand what it means. You think that Yara Greyjoy understands what this means? Or this random person from Dorne understands what it means who doesn't even know who the hell this kid is?
I mean, let's face it, Three-Eyed Raven, one of those things that you may pick out particular things, I guess him becoming king, didn't serve much purpose.
No, like all of Bran's magical bullshit was not paid off, and this was not the payoff. It made no sense for him to end up being the ruler. Like I thought, like obviously he was going to be instrumental in taking the Night King down. We all knew that, but this makes no sense.
And what led to this was a conversation him and Tyrion had off screen.
Holy shit!
I hated it so much. I hated it so much.
Also,
I'm like, the more I talk about it, the more I like, and like whenever we finish watching it, I like slam my hand down, like, what the hell did I just watch? Because it's just like you've been building up so much to it. But let's get more into that. Like, let's talk about the Danny like John conflict, because that's the next thing we're talking about, and that's a very big thing. Again, I like what we were setting up with, like, you know, the John like back and forth or whatever, and I even like, you know, like, it's obviously what she did was completely against John's morals, but John thinks he loves her and stuff, so like I got that he was trying to like talk himself out of it, and where Tyrion was like, you know, be real, dude, you would not have done this, like this is wrong, and, you know, again, I like where we were heading, but boy did it just feel like there was a bunch of tension and then just nothing.
Stabby.
It was just the moment they were like, we knew he was gonna kill her. He kills her. She doesn't even get to say anything, and there's really no repercussions. The Unsullied don't even like he killed her, and there was basically no repercussions with the Unsullied. They just like went away. They're like, oh, we're gonna go off of the plot now. Bye. Like, we were super mad, but we're gonna go. Bye.
not even that.
And
But
they didn't even seem that mad. You think Grey would be fuming, like kill him on the spot, but they kept him, and he was like kind of calm the whole time.
When they set that up at the beginning with like Tyrion and John, Grey Worm and John's like altercation, it's like, okay, Grey Worm's, we're gonna have a serious altercation with Grey Worm, and like, no, John did the most severe thing he could, and there was no repercussions.
Hey, I just want to give props to Grey Worm. He was like my number one on the list. I thought would die. He lived. Good for him.
Yeah.
so, on that whole Daenerys like getting stabbed thing, how did they know she gets stabbed? Drogon took her away and flew off.
Yeah, I agree with that, but the rational answer probably is John is a man of honor and told them or some shit.
That's true, but I feel
John is my little sister. When my little sister cheated on an English test, she handed it in and immediately said, I cheated on this. That is Jon Snow.
That's really funny.
Yeah, you gotta remember, John's an idiot. We love John, but he's an idiot. Just like Ned Stark was.
I don't even know if I love John anymore.
I don't know either.
He went and joined the KKK again and rode off into the woods.
Oh my god. Yeah, and then the like, once again, I felt like I was watching a reenactment of a Reddit comment when Drogon, he kills Dany. Drogon looks at him, starts breathing fire, and then burns down the Iron Throne. I'm like,
can we talk about how bad the CG was on that fire breathing too? When Jon was like trying to avoid the fire, and it's like, holy shit, that looks bad.
Even like the bending of the Iron Throne, it just looked like this little like. Bleep.
But it's okay because they spent all the budget on him petting Ghost.
It's true.
Yeah.
Oh, they knew that everyone would end up loving the
Do you think that was
season
an added
because like he's
scene
gonna pet
afterwards?
Ghost in like 2 episodes. Just wait. I mean, what did y'all think about like this whole scene? Like, like him stabbing Dany and then Drogon burning the Iron Throne, which is just, I don't know. What did you guys think?
It was just like so on the nose symbolism, and it, as Holden said earlier, it didn't make sense. It made no fucking sense.
It
Drogon
just
had
happened,
no
and
idea.
I felt nothing. I felt nothing for
Yeah.
Daenerys Targaryen dying.
Which,
Who had arguably been like the biggest hero and person you're rooting for the entire series for a decade, and then like this moment comes and you're like, huh? He's like, good. I know it had to happen for the story. Cool. Bye.
I mean, and she does the whole slaughtering thing. She gives that speech, and honestly, we get like no meaningful lines of dialogue pretty much the last 2 episodes before she dies.
Yeah.
and even that, like, are even talking about like even more things to be mad about. Whenever, like, this was before I knew how bad this episode was gonna get, but whenever she was giving that speech at the beginning, and she was basically saying like, we're gonna go like destroy the whole world, basically, like. If you thought that last week wasn't earned with her destroying King's Landing, this was just taking that up like 10 notches. It's like, if you think it wasn't earned for her to destroy King's Landing, now she's just all of a sudden wanting to destroy the world, even
Starting
though
with Winterfell.
she's basically just a supervillain who wants to destroy the world with no sort of moral grayness at all, where 2 episodes ago she wanted to break the wheel and wanted to like save everyone. And we did not see any build up, like any good build up to get us from point A to point B. And this is one of those, like, I can see how, like, we could have gotten to the King's Landing part. There's parts in this episode with her character arc that, like, I don't know. I don't know if we could have gotten here in a good way.
Well, and I think they could have if they had set it up a few seasons ago. There's no way in season 8 alone they could have done it. But her justifications also don't make sense for her actions last episode. She kept saying, like, well, Cersei was using her people and the innocent as a shield. But they surrendered and you still burned them to the ground. Like, she put the shield down. Like, your reasoning for why you did that doesn't make any sense. It's still really flawed. And this episode did nothing to make up for it.
Yeah, they made it abundantly clear that the battle was over and that she decided to do that. That's why I assumed that argument was off the table and she was going to either be remorseful for it or be like, no, this is what I had to do because it's fear. I have to rule with fear. Yeah.
You guys remember when they made Bran king?
Like every 5 minutes of this podcast, we have to go back and remind ourselves that happened, because I honestly forget about it every 5 minutes.
What did Bran say too? That, like, he's something like
right?
That's why
Are you okay with being king? Well, that's why I came.
Think I came up here?
Yeah, you pretty much
God.
I knew you were gonna ask me this, so that's why I came.
It's fan fiction. It is fan fiction.
So bad.
It's painful. This is legitimately painful.
Yep.
I mean, I really when I heard the Daenerys thing, saw the Daenerys thing, her burning the city down, I'm like, oh, I can see George R. Martin telling the writers this is what happens. They didn't set it properly. I just cannot see George R. Martin saying, dude, Bran's going to be the king. It's going to be great.
I'm like hoping to God that this is just something that they were like, oh, we don't have the characters to make this ending work. I guess
so do an ending that doesn't work.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping at this point, because like even in the books, I don't see how this can make sense. I mean, like, obviously, Bran's a very different character, and his arc is way better done so far in the books, but still.
Okay. Here is my, we'll say, stupid conspiracy that's obviously not satirical conspiracy. George R. Martin didn't like the show where it was going because once they got the source material, it wasn't as great because they only were good when they stuck to his outline in his books. So if they stuck to his outline that strongly, he's like, I bet I can tell them something really dumb that's going to happen at the end, and they'll go ahead and do it. Like, I don't know, like making Bran king or something. And George R. Martin just watched this episode dying laughing.
You actually did
it. I can't wait to sell so many more books.
That's the truth. He's going to sell so many books from people who are just like, I can't wait to see how this really ends.
Man, and then it's Bran, and people are still upset. It's still not done well.
Man, I hope he like announces the book like while we're recording this tonight. Like he's like, "Hey, so that was some shit, huh? How about this book that's coming out next month?"
He just shadow drops all the books. He's like, "I've had them done for years, bitches."
Oh, he already actually said that's not the case because Sir Barristan Selmy, the actor who played him, came out and said that was the case, and he's now said, no, I don't have the books written. I don't even have the 7th book started at all. But I'm holding on to the 6th book is still finished. It's going to release very soon. Even though I still have like 4 books to
I think like that could be the case that like he finished it like 4 or 5 months ago and HBO's like, "Hey, why don't you just hold off until the end of the season?" Like I don't buy that he's had it done for like 2 years or anything, because I think he would have just put it out. Like, it's money. But like, I could see if it was like a few months to not announce it right in the middle of this season. So I'm holding out hope for the next few weeks maybe being announced.
Because I don't know if this episode, I mean, we'll need to see general audience reaction. I wonder if this is the kind of episode that makes people more excited for the books, or like, screw this series in general, I'm done. But we did see a completed A Song of Ice and Fire book in the show.
Speaking of on the nose,
God,
Jeff.
Yeah.
Speaking of on the nose.
Oh my God. It was so
one
of the dumbest things.
I completely forgot about that scene until just now.
So stupid.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. Thanks for bringing us all down. You can look darker. It goes further down.
We've been down since the beginning.
Like, when was that book written? I didn't understand that. Did I miss something there? Was it written in a handful of days?
It's been going on
like,
since the beginning of the show. Duh.
Oh, someone's been writing.
And also,
And they finished it faster than George.
Okay.
and also Tyrion Lannister, who
It's also like an inch big, as opposed to like the entire collection of Game of Thrones, which is huge.
well, also Tyrion Lannister, who has been hand to 3 kings, king/queens in this entire story, is not mentioned at all in this.
They gotta get a joke in.
Yeah, they gotta get a joke.
yeah,
They gotta
funny
make you
punchline
laugh.
doesn't make sense.
Which
And
means this is the joke they were going for, or not the joke. Well, I guess maybe it's a joke because the whole fucking season's a joke. But the thing they were going for is, oh, the books that we're reading from George R.R. Martin are the retelling from this maester. That's kind of a clever little bring it all full circle. But then it's like, no, it's not, because if
It's not
Tyrion's not in
clever.
it, then this book is literally nothing. It's just literally someone looking into the camera and saying the name of the movie. That's what this book is. It's like if Tyrion were to turn around and be like, I guess this is a Game of Thrones. That's exactly what this moment was, because it's worthless. It doesn't even have that clever little twist that wouldn't be clever anyway.
Yeah, it serves no purpose. It's also in the scene itself. They could have taken that chunk out of the scene, and the scene itself would have been the same, let alone the whole series. Like, the scene itself would have been exactly the same. It was just hugely disappointing that they even bothered to include that. It was
Yeah,
ridiculous.
honest to God, forgot about that, Jeff. I
Hey,
was very
at least Braun's
preoccupied.
on the up and up.
But why then?
It's all right. They spent a good, 45 seconds
Yeah, but
talking
here-
about brothels, so there's that.
Yeah.
Okay, here's the thing about Braun, though. His deal was if... I guess Tyrion's there. So Tyrion okay, never mind. I take that back. I was gonna say, why did Braun even get what he got if Daenerys isn't the king, or Cersei isn't the? Cersei or Daenerys is the king, Black Queen. But I guess I take that back because Tyrion's still there.
Danny
Always
should
pays
have
his debts.
died. Danny should have died in the 8th or 9th episode, and this some of the stuff we saw now should have been the 10th episode. Definitively. There's no if and or buts about it. That's the way they should have gone down.
I actually would have gone farther than that. I think that this should have happened about 5 or 6 episodes in, and then you have a lot of the what's going to happen to Jon and Tyrion as they're in prison.
Well,
and kind of
I
that.
agree
What
with
happens
you,
when Jon,
but
whenever
over
it
next
finds out Jon's
season,
the rightful ruler?
That's all. I feel like this could even be 2 seasons. Like I said, one season could be some of what we saw in this season, and then like you were saying, Danny dies halfway through the next season. It's clear they had enough material for probably 2 seasons worth, and they decided to do it in 6, which is just bonkers to me, especially when we hear that they didn't have to do that.
And they took 2 years to do that.
Yeah. I mean, let's be honest. They took 2 years because they had 2 giant battle scenes to shoot.
And they were
That's it.
impressive. They were impressive,
That's
but
really
it doesn't
it.
make me any more when people ask if they should watch Game of Thrones, I'm going to be like, yeah, maybe, because a lot of it's cool, but be prepared because the ending's going to leave you unsatisfied. That's what I'm going to have to say at this point.
At
And
the
family
halfway
members.
point, it kind of dips down in quality a lot. The ending is not good.
I mean, let's be honest, at least from me and Jeff's perspective, I mean, you guys might not be quite as down at the point we are, but I think me and Jeff both were season 5 was terrible, and then after season 5, there were moments of greatness, but for the most part, it was not great. It just kind of the writing kept going downhill from season 5 onwards. That's half the damn show.
It's kind of like the show Weeds. You ever watch Weeds?
No.
Where it's there were 8
Yeah.
seasons of that thing, but literally, if I could go back in time and just tell myself, stop at season 4. Stop at season 4. Please, dear
3.
God.
Start with season 3. Once they leave the town, wherever the town it was they were in,
And
it's done.
like I said earlier on my beginning opening rant thing when I was giving my general opinions, the thing with Darby and I guess, sorry, Darby, I can talk about for you a little bit here. With 6 and 7, the stuff we enjoyed, some of it was but we're kind of excited where it's going. But now that we saw where it's go, it retroactively makes that stuff we were kind of on worse.
Yeah.
Oh, and again, R plus L equals J meant nothing.
Which is bonkers. It's absolutely insanity to me.
Rhaegar plus Lyanna equals Jon meant nothing. Narratively.
Jon being
Oh.
a Targaryen meant nothing. Like Drogon, it didn't mean anything really with Drogon. It didn't mean anything with the Iron Throne. Bran freaking Stark.
The only thing that I could say it mattered at that last scene was why Drogon didn't just toast Jon. That is the only.
But then
thing.
Jon went on to do nothing of importance. So within there, like Jon, I'm not arguing with it. But like Jon could have been toasted right there, and nothing really much would have changed.
Yeah.
Or how about this? This has been so cool. Drogon tries to light him on, tries to breathe fire on him, tries to kill him, but he's a Targaryen. He's a dragon.
And then it could potentially been is like, oh, he's a traitor to the
away.
throne, and they did that. That would have been better than what we got.
And then Jon walks out naked, and everyone sees his giant penis, and they're like, "Oh, you're our king! You survived!"
They play that
sense if Tyrion had a whole speech. If Tyrion had a whole speech about Jon's penis being the reason,
I got the truth.
should
That
be the
happens, and then Podrick runs out of the shower with a towel on. It falls, and they're like, "No, Podrick's our true king. The true king."
And then they just play the Varys lines about cocks do matter just over and over again, like at like max volume, and then it like cuts the black.
And then
Also,
they played the theme song on kazoos.
I love that Podrick had this big reveal that he's been knighted now. He's Sir Podrick, and his duties are still, you're just going to wheel around this mannequin everywhere. As a knight, you're not a
That's your
wheelchair
king.
attendant.
That whole
You are a
ending was
hospice
just, like,
nurse, for better or for worse.
That whole ending was just fan service to the point where I was like cringing in my seat. I'm like, what am I watching? It's like Bron's on the small council, Sir Podrick, and then Bran Stark's freaking king. This really just seemed like, oh, we have to shock him. We have to shock them. It doesn't have to make sense, but they have to be surprised. I would so much rather have been not surprised by a single thing that happened, but it actually like makes sense.
Man, to think they actually surprised us on who was going to sit in the Iron Throne after all our theories. Okay, I know there's someone out there who said Bran. People have said the Bran, but partly as joke answers because we went through all those same ones.
Oh, and I can't wait for the hot takes that it's like, oh, you guys wanted to be surprised. You're just mad. Like, you're mad.
Oh no, that's going to happen.
Like, being surprised doesn't mean the writing's good. Subversion doesn't always mean good.
Yep.
All right. Well,
is it really? Is it subversion though? If it's so purposefully supposed to be subversion?
Not really.
No.
I mean, is it really? I feel like subversion's only really subversion if it takes you in a cool direction, and it's just not. It's just so stupid. It's not even interesting. I have so little. I have one positive.
Please
thing in the
go.
episode. When what's his face guy that I thought ended at Red Wedding, but Jeff tells me actually should have been season 6
Darby
at
did.
some point.
Gotta give him credit.
Darby did, sorry. When Darby corrected me that he came up in season 6, when he turns and his sword like awkwardly knocks on that like pole, that was hilarious. I literally did start laughing. That was amazing. That was the only good thing in the episode. It was a subversion. It broke my expectations of what was going to happen next, and it made it seem more awkward in a great way. And that was the only thing I look back on the episode that I actually.
Do you remember when they made Bran king?
Actually, I do remember that.
Bran the
now that you
Broken.
mention it, now that you mention, also
That's when I realized I hate this episode.
Sansa Stark's Queen of the North and like nothing. We don't really get to see any like that should have repercussions. I guarantee you, they're in the books. It's not just going to be like, "Hey, we're an independent nation now. Hope that's cool. Okay, bye."
I mean, well, yeah, even the repercussions thing is like, it just kind of happened.
and we didn't get to see anything.
It's like with the Danny thing where they kind of threw hints at it and just kind of said it, but it was kind of like tell and not showing it happening.
Yeah,
You know?
and we just saw her like
The
get a
lo-
crown. We didn't see like Sansa's reaction to this really, or like her ruling or anything. It was just kind of like, "Hey, this happened. We only have
Or
10
anyone
more
else in the room.
minutes
We
in
didn't
this
see anyone
episode."
else in the room. She might have just been sitting in her bedroom and she's like practicing putting it on and trying it in front of the mirror and be like, "Ooh, this is so fun." Maybe she didn't actually have a crown.
Like, I don't know. I just have to like mentally think this didn't happen, and I have to look forward to the books. But do you guys have anything more on this episode? If not, I think we should move on to just maybe thoughts about the whole series as a whole, because it's done. It's fucking done. Do you guys have any more like specific thoughts about this episode? Anything that we haven't ranted about yet?
No. I just feel like I'm just like
Hollow.
internally poisoned.
Yeah.
It's so
I try-
sad.
I'm trying to think if there's a funny scene we missed that'd be fun to write on.
Guess the only thing I can think about is like that we didn't talk about is Brienne writing Jaime's story into the book. I mean, I don't really have anything.
That was
I thought,
I liked
especially in the books, like Jaime writing in that book is a big part of the book, so that was kind of a cool like throwback to that.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah, because I've been rewatching the series throughout watching season 8, and he does look back at the book a lot. I also paused and looked at all of the things that were written, and I recommend going if you haven't go back and pause and read that. It's actually a really great.
Did you
moment in the
notice where she
episode.
like?
They cut away from them
Yeah.
really
Did you notice
fast.
when she obviously forgot how to spell pledged because you could see that she had to like squeeze the E in there between the L and the D. It's like everything
I
is
didn't
like
catch
super
that. That's
well
funny.
spaced, and then the first 4 letters of pledged are all clumped together.
I do like that moment at the end of writing that where she writes, what was it? Something about
Die
the queen.
protecting.
Protecting the
Like,
queen.
went back, died protecting the queen, and you could tell she went back to almost write and love her, or something along those lines, but didn't.
she protected his honor. Well,
Yeah.
yeah.
Protected his honor. I thought that was a really great one because she had every reason based on how he treated her at the end to like turn back on that, and I don't know, that was a great
Yeah,
moment.
I like Brienne being the bigger person there. You know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Understanding Jaime is who he is. You know, at this point. Yeah. I like that. Hey, there's a beacon of positivity. There you go. All right. Well, let's just think about the whole season now that it's over, how we feel about it as a whole, how this episode kind of colors all of it. And I mean, like I think it's self-explanatory at this point. There's just so many of these, like Daenerys Targaryen only, like her arc only works if there's a fitting end to it, because it's just been going on too long. It has been too separated from the main story for so long, which I liked in a way. Like I liked that, like you got to see Essos and like she was so isolated from everyone else. It was cool. I mean, I freaking had Daenerys Targaryen as like my wallpaper, like laptop wallpaper for like 2 years. Like I really love this character, and then I felt nothing when she died. I really felt like her arc needed to end in something that felt meaningful and felt impactful for it to feel worth it. But with that kind of end, it just really does make it feel like if I went back and started rewatching the show right now, I would just be like, what? Like, what's the point? Why am I watching this Danny stuff?
And then the brand storyline comes on. You're like,
And you can it's painfully obvious that they had no clue that he was going to end up in the Iron Throne when they were making this. Like, I really want to know when that decision came. But anyway, what do you guys think about the series as a whole? Is there any thoughts you have about where this leaves you thinking about Game of Thrones?
So, I do think they knew that Bran was going to be the Iron Throne earlier on. They talked about knowing 3 big wow moments when they kind of started getting the post-book material, which would have been around season 5. And they said that one of those moments was in the final episode, which I'm assuming is Dany getting stabbed. And I feel like it's hard to recommend the show now.
yeah.
Because it's, if you take there's this whole thing of, is the show the journey or is it the end? And I've been kind of thinking about that this past week. And I think in a procedural show where each week it's a different story and it's kind of its own separate thing, then yeah, you can say the journey was the adventure and that was what the show was, because it's all about those individual episodes. But in the case of Game of Thrones, it's always been about these forces colliding with each other. It's always been about the build up to those big moments that were supposed to happen in season 8 and did happen, but it was just so rushed that it's hard to say it was worth the journey. I don't think it is, and that's a real shame that one season can really ruin a show that badly. But I think it did in this case, because the show is about where it's going.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, I kind of mentioned the Darius before we started recording. It's about journey versus destination and stuff. It's kind of like I mentioned multiple times earlier, Darby and I had a problem with pretty much half the show. So even the journey may not necessarily been worth it up to the point, but if the ending was good or solid, like, okay. But if the destination is not good as well, then half the journey, you really have strong feelings against or whatever. And then it's like, yeah, it makes it a lot harder to recommend this show than it would have been a year or two ago.
Yeah.
It's so crazy to think of what a cultural phenomenon this show has become in the past 10 years. And I'm interested to see like what the narrative, like how we talk about this show 5-10 years from now. Like people look back on Lost and we're like, oh my God, Lost was brilliant. It had some dumb seasons, we know, but overall it was a great show. I liked it. Some people are like, oh, it got kind of weird in season 3 and 4 and I dropped off. But nobody says, oh my God, Lost was absolutely fucking terrible. But right now, that's how I feel about Game of Thrones. And I'm like, this show is not worth watching. But I'm interested to see how that conversation evolves and how we end up looking back on it. Because it is such a big part of pop culture.
I want to make a comparison to Harry Potter for a second. Had the last Harry Potter book been really bad, I don't think that would have changed how amazing the other books would have been. Because going back to the whole procedural shows thing, each of those books is kind of its own story in a way. So it's like, well, yeah, book 7 wasn't that great, but the moment where we found out that Snape was, killed Dumbledore, like Dumbledore, that whole thing, like I'll still remember. I know. I'll still remember that moment in the 6th book. I'll still remember all these, amazing, incredible storylines that happened throughout the series because they were kind of contained in their own books. That's 100% not the case with Game of Thrones. Each season had plot threads that were tied to that season, but those threads always continued off into the next seasons and the seasons before. It was always tied. It was always connected. So if it starts to get weak at the end, it doesn't work out. Does a blanket work if it doesn't get your feet warm as well? No, you don't like that blanket. It doesn't work because all the threads don't work together.
Yeah,
and we can still ignore Crimes of Grindelwald for Harry Potter. Like, yeah, that most recent movie was abhorrent, but that doesn't affect the original 8 movies.
Yeah, I agree with you because, like, so much of Game of Thrones, like, the seasons and the books are kind of arbitrary. It's one big story that's constantly building on itself. It's not like, Harry Potter is sectioned off like this is a year and this is, there's like, it's a lot more self-contained. This is, we just say seasons because that's what it ended up being. You always feel like you're building for something. Like they set up the White Walker threat in the first episode. First scene of the first episode. Dany conquering Westeros was set up in the very first episode. It's Jon going to the to the Night's Watch. Like all of this was set up like for so long, and it's just we've been building and building and building. And obviously, they went in a lot of like offshoots to make you think we're going one direction, and then they cut that off and subverted it, and that was brilliant. But while there are brilliant moments in this, part of Game of Thrones is you always knew like, oh, winter's coming, the White Walkers are coming, or Cersei's gonna get her revenge.
Yeah.
Like, Cersei's gonna become Tywin, Tyrion's gonna like go against his family. Like all these things you knew, like, oh, like this is awesome, but it's awesome because it's building towards something. So it definitely makes it when that thing you're building towards just ends up feeling completely hollow. Like I thought I was going to get something out of it. Like I knew I was going to be disappointed by the end of Game of Thrones, especially by the way that the last 2 seasons have gone. But for me to feel this just nothing about some of the things that are happening in this episode, like big things happen this episode, and I felt nothing. I was counting down the minutes for it to be done. It's really, really hard for me to go to someone who's never watched Game of Thrones and say, you should watch this. I mean, on one level, it's like it's a pop culture phenomenon, so maybe you should watch it because of that. But as far as the quality of the show, like in 20 years from now, if you haven't watched Game of Thrones, I'd be like, just don't.
Yeah.
Just freaking don't.
Yeah. And I know this is like my own personal opinion, but I do feel like it's not even a subjective thing that it's bad. I just feel like it's objectively so much worse than what has come before it that it's not like it's my personal opinion. I really do feel like it's just that bad. It's like I didn't like the ending too much. It just didn't really speak to me. It's just that terrible.
There are going to be people that like it and all that stuff, but just I try to look the writing in the last season and all the stories so critically. It's like, no, it's just bad.
Yep.
Well, the people I see defending it online are people defending the production values, and because they are really high and met the standards. The acting was really fantastic. The music was still really good. It's just the writing is what was abhorrent, I think.
That was the thing that I watched Game of Thrones for. I don't watch TV.
Yep.
Exactly.
I don't.
That's what
Grandpa,
I watch TV for.
you know, he might have looked good in a suit. He might have smelled really great. He might have had a charming voice. But if he's just spewing racist comments, it doesn't matter. He's a bad person.
Dress him up as nice as you want to.
Yep.
Even if he has an orchestra backing those racist comments.
This is a bummer because like going into this, I remember like me and like whenever we were talking like before we started doing the Spoilercast, we warned you that it's like, oh yeah, me and Jeff were a little negative on last season, and I remember Chad was like, oh like yeah, like how could you be negative about this? I hope not. I was like, I really wanted Chad of all people to be like positive by the end
I've
of
been
this.
broken.
I did not want like
I am
Chad
Bran
to
the
be brought
Broken.
down by this, but.
Chad the Broken, first of his name.
It's just a bummer to me. Like, I'm very interested to see like my family who just like loves everything that's happened in Game of Thrones at this point. But I could even see some of those people be broken by this episode because like while like I had problems with this season, I would definitely compare it to some people online. I felt like I was always like a little bit defending it. I was like, yes, it's obviously very rushed and it would be way better if it was well fleshed out. But it's like, but I like the overall things that are happening. It makes me excited for the books. It looks good. All these other things. I was like, you know, I'm still enjoying it, and like that kind of just that argument just kind of collapsed around me in this episode when I knew where we were heading towards. And just how fast we just moved on a dime to get there.
Oh, darn, you didn't know where exactly we were heading until it happened.
No, I'm saying now that I know, it makes this whole season even worse.
Yeah.
It made it like maybe season 5 isn't the worst season. It probably still is, but maybe it's not.
No, nothing can be worse than season 8 in terms of Game of Thrones.
Season 5 was bad, but I
It's
think
just
you're
not
right.
possible.
I think season 8 is probably rock bottom. Man, this sucks.
I mean, it will forever have Bran becoming
I
the
can't
king of
believe
Hey,
Westeros.
Chad, you want to hit us one more time?
You remember when Bran became king?
It doesn't get better, Jeff. It doesn't get better.
This
Rest
gets
in
worse.
peace, Grandpa. That's all I have to say about this show. Is just rest in peace.
Worst plot twist ever.
Yeah.
I'm still in this. Like, I'm still just hoping that like I'm passed out somewhere where like Game of Thrones is about to start.
You're passed out drunk, and
Yeah.
I'm about to shake you away. Like, Darby, it's time for Game of Thrones.
oh, I had this terrible dream.
And then the episode plays exactly as you dreamed. You're like, oh no, it's real.
Oh, that actually reminds me. Someone put a meme up on Reddit that was like the best way the show could possibly end, and it shows Bran waking up in bed after he fell out of the tower, and it's like, "Mom, I had the most terrible dream. You died in like this wedding, and Dad died, and all those people died." She's like, "It's okay, dear. Your dad was turned down. Your Robert's offer to be hand to the king, and we're just gonna live in Winterfell now. It's gonna be okay." Like that would have been a great ending. In comparison.
Holding honest to God, I would have enjoyed that more than this.
Yep.
Not even joking.
Way
I would have
more.
enjoyed that more than this.
They could have like done before he even wakes up. They could have done the whole plot of Wizard of Oz, like Bran going down the Yellow Brick Road, and then wakes up and is like, "Mom, you're not gonna believe it."
You
Still
were
would've been a
there,
great ending.
and you were there.
I would have hated it. I would have immediately as the episode ended gone, "Oh my god, that was so stupid. I can't believe the whole thing was a dream." And then after the episode with DB and DB Weiss would have come on, and they'd have been like, "Yeah, so this is how it ended. We were gonna have it with Bran being the king." And I was like, "No, thank God, I'll keep this ending."
George R. R. Martin told us to make him the king, but we had a much better ending in mind.
I'd be like, yeah, for what you did, DB, Weiss.
DB Weiss.
I am very curious just what's going to happen online with that like petition to remake season 8, which already
never
has
gonna happen.
1 million votes before this episode aired.
I mean, nothing. It's just Game of Thrones is going to go down as a not that great TV show. This is what's going to come down from this.
and I don't mean that they're going to remake it, by the way. I just mean that I think
Oh,
more
yeah,
people are going to
yeah.
sign that, and I think it's going to become a bigger issue.
No, I
for
hate it.
HBO.
I
But
was
they're
one of the
definitely not
people
gonna remake
reading
it.
some people being like super nitpicky online. To be fair, like I have not enjoyed the season, but it's like I definitely thought there was like some people that were taking their complaints too far, and then now I'm just like, I legitimately struggle. Like you said, the most positive thing I could say is dude man hitting his sword on a chair. It's about the most positive I can get this episode. And I've had
my question.
an hour and 10 seconds to think about his name, and I still haven't come up with his name. And I read the damn books. What is his freaking name? Anyway, go ahead.
So I'm going to say right now, I'm calling it right now. It's not going to happen immediately. It's not going to happen super soon, but these guys are not making the next Star Wars movie. I guarantee you they will get pulled off of the next Star Wars movies. They have done it. Disney has done it before. They took Colin Trevorrow off of Episode 9 when the reviews tanked for his most recent movie he had released, and then the script turned out to be really bad. I really think the same thing's going to happen in this case because this ending is so shockingly terrible. If I were Bob Iger, head of Disney, I would be worried about giving these guys Star Wars. I really would be, because maybe the first 2 movies in their trilogy are going to be good, but they don't stick landings very well. So, like, Crash and Burn don't stick landings.
I think they have a long time to make that decision, though.
And I think that after there's going to be outrage about this episode. There's going to be, and they're going to take the safe option and pull them off of Star Wars and just forever give Star Wars to J.J. Abrams.
I'd be okay with that.
He's just going to be the
No,
savior
Holden,
of
usually
Star
this
Wars.
is conspiracy theorist type stuff, and I do still think they're going to end up making the Star Wars movies, but as a fan, I'm worried. I mean, like, because honest to God,
I'm worried.
the way that the writing on this show dropped off after it was solely them doing it, and just like you said, just how bad, like their signature thing, Game of Thrones is forever and always going to be their thing. When you look up DBB wise, and like it's gonna be both of their things, and to have this bad of a landing, like just the writing that I would expect from like Jeff's whatever CBS show, what's the channel with Flash and all those
CW?
CW shows. I love you, Jeff, but like
Flash is terrible, but I watch it anyway.
I watched a lot of Arrow and Flash. I know how bad they are. Kept watching them, though.
I watched one episode and I dodged a bullet.
Same. Yeah, no, I'm worried. I'm super worried about those Star Wars movies, and like I was also one of those that was like, when people were saying like, oh, they're obviously just rushed to get the Star Wars movies, I don't know, like, we'll see. I think that they would give Game of Thrones its due diligence, but then we learned when the release dates for those Star Wars movies are, and they're not very far away. It's abundantly clear that's what happened. Like, it's absolutely, it's like, we need to start shooting these Star Wars movies. We're already writing the script. Let's get Game of Thrones out. Let's do this. Let's move this on. Especially when HBO is practically begging them, like, please do more. Like, we want you to do more Game of Thrones. And instead of like handing it off to, like, I think I've said on this podcast before, they literally could have gotten anyone they wanted to take over this show for them. It's Game of Thrones. It's the biggest show on TV. Anyone would have taken it. They could have given it to the best of the best, moved on, done their Star Wars things, and we would have applauded them for many great seasons of television. But instead, they had to stay on there, and now, like, I don't know. I don't know if I trust them with future projects.
Well, those 3 Star Wars movies that we know are coming in like 2021 or 2022 or whatever, do you think those are them, or do you think that's the Rian Johnson trilogy?
No, it is confirmed.
That's theirs?
Disney
When
has
is the
said
Rian
is
Johnson
theirs.
trilogy
It's
coming
theirs.
in?
And that's the point I want to continue with Darby saying they're not going to get rid of him. They are, because exactly Chad's point, where's the Rian Johnson trilogy? Suddenly, after the outrage over Last Jedi, they're just kind of being hush-hush about that Rian Johnson trilogy, and it's not gone. Is it gone? I don't know. It's gone. They've announced the next Star Wars movie for the next decade. They're not going to be like, hey, Johnson, we just signed a contract with you, but can you be ready in 2030?
I might be wrong on this.
No, they're done.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't they schedule 6 Star Wars movies? Okay.
Nope, just
3, and they're 2 years apart, starting in 2022.
Okay.
I saw something about the Johnson trilogy being canceled, but it was just someone on Twitter. So like, don't take that for sure. Like, I don't think people really know what's going on with that.
There's been a lot of rumors, and then either Johnson or Kathleen Kennedy came out and was like, no, that's not true. But then they announced afterwards the only 3 movies for the next decade. So I think it's true they just don't want to make a big thing out of it, because it's like admitting failure for Last Jedi.
I mean,
They
which
were
was
really
very
proud of
successful.
Last Jedi
But I mean,
before
Game
it
of
came out.
Thrones was very successful viewership wise too. But
Yeah, but they can find a director and a writer who haven't fucked up in that way.
It's okay, guys. They're just trying to make room for the Avatar movies.
Which also got delayed. Ugh, stupid.
Yes. To be clear, I liked
loved
Last
it.
Jedi. To be clear, but the outrage was very big for it.
I did.
Similarly to,
I've never
Game of
watched
Thrones.
it.
So
I mean, it's no.
Last Jedi.
I haven't watched a full Star Wars movie ever.
Jeff's a weird one.
Really?
Yes.
But man, those
Yeah, Jeff, you
CW
gotta do
shows.
that.
Jeff's a weird one.
Yep.
Now, this is where I plug Doom Patrol and DC Universe. It is great.
You guys remember when they made Brand King?
I want to talk. I want to think about a good show. Let me think about Doom Patrol.
We gotta leave while we have our souls.
I'm just reminding myself that Mr. Robot ends this year, so at least like one show will end this year that I.
This
might be
just
happy with.
reinforces
We'll
my
see.
habits of never watching TV and only playing video games. This is why I don't do this, Jeff.
Man,
I'm just gonna go back into my
Mass
hole.
Effect 3. Mass
never
Effect
doing
3.
it.
man, it got
Mass
to
Effect
the
3's
point-
ending was not that bad.
It was. I was just making a joke. Can you imagine if Last of Us Part 2 though is as bad as
Oh.
season 8 of Game of
I'd
Thrones?
cry.
Like the outrage.
Just be like, I'm just gonna replay the same like 3 games. I'm just gonna go back and play Breath of the Wild again. There's no
Gross.
story. There's no story to
Yes.
disappoint me. There's no
Well, there is a story to disappoint you, and it disappoints you. It's just
you just really
easy
don't
to
care
ignore.
about it.
But guys, it's okay. We saw the Westworld season 3 trailer. I didn't know it was Westworld. I was like, this
Wait,
looks
what the hell?
this looks pretty cool. And then it's Westworld. I'm like, oh.
Why are you doing a season 3?
Yeah.
I really
That
don't
was
like
that was a show too where I was like the first season was like, man, that's really great. And then season 2, at the end of it, I looked at my roommate and I was like, that's kind of one of those things where I wish they just had stopped at season 1, and I really hate
that's
they have
like
it too.
that's kind of like we were saying with Game of Thrones. I think Westworld season 2 retroactively made Westworld season 1 bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, Westworld season 1 sucked. It has such huge, glaring plot holes. It's amazing to me that it has a coherent story at all. It's terribly written.
Well,
I
I wouldn't say
hate
that
season
completely
1.
understood it. I was just like, this is kind of cool. Yeah, I just watched it once. Yeah.
But that's the whole thing. If you start, okay, it's a whole other.
Just
I have
get
rants
ready
about
for
season
Westworld rewatch with Nerds at Large and Respawn. With the John Cena theme song. Do you guys have any last thoughts? This is it. Game of Thrones. That's the closing call for Game of Thrones. Do you have any last thoughts?
I'm glad it's over.
Best season ever.
Everyone go watch WWE. It probably has a better plot than this. Thank you guys. Well, thank you guys so much for watching. Me, Jeff, and Will, our friend Will, who like just recently started watching the show literally a few weeks ago, and he's like in season 6 somewhere. So he was gonna try to catch up for this, but he might try to catch up like in the next few weeks or so. So we might do another video with him just talking about Game of Thrones as a whole. Whenever I planned doing that, I thought it was going to be a lot happier of a video. But
Aw,
we can
that
get
poor
his
boy.
perspective of someone who didn't have to wait years.
Who
So
binge watched the whole thing
he
and get that
binge-watched the whole
perspective.
thing, so.
Oh, that was
Yeah.
me. I binged watched it all last year, and then I waited a year for this. I binged watched last year for
You feel-
this.
You feel fulfilled?
Woo.
Feel super happy about your decisions?
Sure.
Hey, you got to talk to us. There
Yeah.
you go. You got
There
to
we
hang
go.
out with us. Yeah.
There was
that's,
that,
That's the
yeah.
plus side. So we might in the same podcast feed. We may or may not be doing that. Me, Jeff, and Will. We'll see about that. Maybe Will will love it. I don't know. I kind of find that hard to believe, but maybe. Oh boy. Game of Thrones would not recommend, which is insane. But this has been There's a Large Spoilercast for Game of Thrones. Chad and Holden, why don't you go ahead and tell everybody once again where they can find you, and maybe a little bit about that Patreon.
Woo! Respawn Aim Fire, the kick-ass irreverent gaming podcast. Do you like video games? Do you like people being inappropriate but still hilarious? That's me. Do you like people being great people like the straight man and that the crazy person has to bounce all of their ideas off of? And he's like, Chad, you're just being racist right now. That's Holden. Yay!
I have to say
Respawn
that
Aim
one a
Fire.
lot.
No,
He's like the
No,
Night's
I'm
watching
kidding.
here.
it's a joke. Comedy trumps everything.
Super important interruption, by the way. Episode 6 is called The Iron Throne.
Fuck,
That's a fitting
fuck
name.
that. Fuck everything.
It's better than the Bells. Or the last.
I thought
of
the Bells
Starks,
was a
but I
cool
think
name, but it's just everything else about the season sucks. I don't know. God, I'm just so bummed out. All right, thank you guys for joining us this whole time. We need to do more things together. We really enjoyed doing this, and really thank you for being along the ride, as tumultuous as it was.
R.I.P.
Yeah. All right, well,
R.I.P.
see you guys later.
Ciao.
Bye.
Bye.